There are 3 tabs at the top of the page. The personal page, which is where I am, this patient's demographics. The PSR, which we'll return to, but we're here to learn to conduct the comprehensive periodontal exam. That's the periodontal page tab. When I click on Perio page, it takes me to my visit settings. Think of the visit settings as I'm telling the computer what is today's exam going to include. A comprehensive exam is everything. It's the dentition, recession, hyperplasia, gingival attachment, pocket depth, bleeding, suppuration, furcation, plaque indices, mobility, MGJ involvement, and a diagnosis. I can turn any of those modes on or off by simply selecting or deselecting. I have recession and the MGJ mode turned off for now, and we'll return to them later in the exam. We've date stamped the exam. Not only is that important for today's record, but Florida Probe maintains comparative data over time. It shows me instantly and graphically changes in pocket depth over time. And once I put in the examiner, once in an individual room, I'm just going to use your first name here. I want to put this in as I would want it printed on the printout. But once I've put it in each workstation once, it will always be available from this drop-down menu now. At this point in the exam, when I click on OK, I'm finished with the keyboard and mouse. I'm now going to do everything with the foot pedal, maintain asepsis, and work solo. The software is very graphical and intuitive to follow. There's a lot of pictures on the screen of what to do and how to acknowledge it with the foot pedal. The first thing that the software wants me to do is to calibrate. Each handpiece can be slightly different. One might be 10.6 millimeters, another might be 10.8 millimeters. So it's asking me to calibrate. So at this point I can glove up, take my handpiece out of the sterile pouch, and I install the handpiece on the encoder cable. This encoder cable, think of it as the magic of the system. This is the cable that you want to protect. This is what gives us the 15 grams constant force pressure. This is what is taking the measurement. It's analogous to an X-ray sensor. I want to protect and not damage this cable, especially in the wheels of my chair. So depending on where the computer is in relation to the patient, whether you're right-handed or left-handed, whether you work at 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, or 12 o'clock, we need to think about how this is managed. One of the strategies I use often is to put it over my shoulder, to keep it out of the wheels of the chair. I like to hold the silver and install the handpiece. It needs to be snug. I make a point of that because it's part of protecting this cable. I don't want to be turning that cable and kinking it. So I turn the handpiece to snug. Take off the protective cover, it just clicks off. Now the first thing that I do is take that handpiece and push it against my glove finger. I want to check that the tip is free floating. There are 3 issues relative to patient comfort that are somewhat technique sensitive. The first one is a bent or kinked tip. Needs to be free floating. If it is bent, then I could be poking the patient. Similarly, sometimes during a long exam, saliva, blood, plaque can build up on it, and in my tray setup I might keep a cup of a minty mouthwash as a rinse and lubricant. First issue is bent, kink tip. It needs to be free floating. The second issue is finger placement on the handpiece. It is holding this handpiece is different than your traditional probe. I know that you hold and fulcrum in various different manners, but it's more critical with this in that that tip needs to be free floating. First and foremost, this little blue button serves a purpose. It's a frictional override of the 15 grams of constant force pressure. So if there is a subgingival calculus, a crown margin, or some other tooth anomaly that you need additional tactile feel, it's there to override the 15 grams, make it a traditional probe so you can bypass that calculus ledge, crown margin, etc. Similarly, I don't want to interfere with the travel of that silver arm. I can't fulcrum out on the end of this probe. If I am interfering with the travel of that arm, I'm poking the patient severely. Small thing, but even a gloved finger on this rounded portion can create enough friction to interfere with the 15 grams. I want to hold it far enough forward to fulcrum, but I don't want to rest on the blue button nor interfere with the travel of the silver arm. The third issue relative to patient comfort is angulation. With this probe, I can't underprobe or overprobe. It is 15 grams. So angulation is even more important because I can't back off relative to patient comfort. In the back of the mouth, I'm pretty much in line with the crown angle and the tip falls into the pocket. As I approach the anteriors, however, the anatomy changes. If I am in line with the crown angle, I'm poking the patient in the sensitive gingiva. I need to increase my angulation, start slightly coronal to the gingival margin, and let it slide into the periodontal pocket by sliding down the root surface. The same thing is true interproximally. I need to make sure that I'm following the long axis of the tooth going toward the apex and increase my angulation. A helpful technique may be to turn your hand over and approach it from a different angle. The Florida probe is absolutely less invasive than traditional probing if done correctly. There are three very simple issues: angulation, bent or kinked tip, or finger placement. If you were getting patient reaction, think of those three things first. So now we're going to follow the graphics. What the picture is showing us is to depress the tip fully on a sterile hard surface. Could be this protective cover, could be a mirror, could be your tray paper, but it needs to be a hard surface. I don't want to use my glove finger because that would be soft and inaccurate. So I depress it fully on a sterile hard surface, and while holding it, pause and step quickly on the foot pedal. Notice I pause for just a moment, release it to its full extension, just like the graphic, and step again. The most common mistake that people make in calibrating is doing their hand and their feet at the same time, stepping and releasing. That's why I make a point of pausing between the two steps. It now has taken me into the next mode, which is to record the dentition. The first time that I see this patient, I need to record the dentition, again, to stay on track. Really serves two purposes. It's going to skip missing teeth, underpontics, and impacted teeth, but it's also going to highlight the relationship between implants, crowns, bridges, and periodontal disease. So the question is, do you want to record the missing teeth? And the answers are here with the foot pedal. No means this patient has 32 teeth and no other dentition. Don't generally use that very often. Yes means I'd like to go in manually and enter the dentition. And remove third molars with the center pedal is a shortcut. Takes the third molars out and stays in the mode to record the additional dentition. So I'm going to go in manually. I'm going to say yes with the red foot pedal.
Entering missing teeth.
Now I'm generally doing a mouth mirror exam. The cursor's on 1, so I can remember the dentition for 8 teeth. So from 1 to 8, what do I have? And now I'll record it with the foot pedal. There are 2 distinct strokes with this foot pedal. Quick taps, which advance the cursor, and hold and listen,
Missing. Implant. Crown.
and it's just a cycle.
Re-enter. Missing. Implant. Crown. Crown.
When I hear what I want, I release with the foot pedal. Quick taps advance,
Missing. Missing.
hold and listen. When I hear what I want, I release.
Missing. Implant. Implant.
And now I'm going to put my cursor on 9,
Midline.
and with my mouth mirror, what do I have from 9 to 16? And record it. Quick taps advance,
Missing. Missing.
hold and listen.
Missing. Implant. Crown. Crown.
On the third molars, I also have impacted.
Missing. Implant. Crown. Impacted.
When I hear impacted, I release. Now notice that the cursor is still on that tooth. So if I've made a mistake, I can just hold again and change it. And it is possible, however the patient presents, to record an implant or a crown on the third molar if they should happen to be that way. A strategy that you'll hear me talk about throughout this is to pause at the end of each arch and at the end of each mode. I'm seeing the upper arch and I want to do a quick review. Am I confident that I've recorded the upper arch correctly? If I have, then I'll advance with the foot pedal.
Lower arch.
And the cursor moved to 17. Now I'm going to go from 17 to 24. What do I have, and record it with the foot pedal. And I can build a bridge. You just have to use your imagination as to what the patient presents with. We go to the bridge menu by hold and
Missing.
listen.
Implant. Crown. Bridge.
When I heard bridge, I released. And now I have a sub-menu. Did the patient present with a 3-unit bridge, a cantilever bridge, a removable partial, might just be X number of Pontics. Just use your imagination and use the tools here to configure it in the order of travel. We're on tooth 18, going to 19 and 20. So I'm going to select the abutment with the center pedal because it's highlighted.
Abutment.
Use the side pedals to navigate right or left in the menu. Select the Pontic on 19.
Pontic.
Move my side pedal back to the abutment, select it,
Abutment.
and if I'm happy with that configuration in this menu, I highlight the check mark done. And now during the exam, it's going to skip under the Pontic to help keep me on track. Now, another time strategy here is that some people want to enter the dentition for their patients of record before the patient ever even arrives. So at lunch today for this afternoon's patients, or tonight for tomorrow's patients, if they're a patient of record and you have the dentition recorded either in your paper chart or in your practice management software, we've given you the keyboard shortcuts to enter that ahead of time. So remember, I is implant and
Midline.
C is crown. Delete is missing.
Missing.
Or we can do it with our keyboard and mouse by double clicking on any tooth within that mode, as long as we're in the missing teeth mode. Even though Florida Probe is designed to be solo operator while maintaining asepsis, there are times when going to the keyboard or mouse is a good option. One of those time management strategies may be for patients of record to enter their dentition before the patient even arrives at the practice or sits in the chair. So for example, at lunch today for this afternoon's patients, or this evening for tomorrow's patients, I can enter that patient's demographic data, their last name, first name, their chart number, gender and date of birth, as well as getting the dentition recorded from either the patient's paper chart or from the practice management software for patients of record. We've provided a very good handout in your user's manual. It's a laminated sheet of the keyboard shortcuts to post in the operatory. There is also on the desktop a icon for keyboard shortcuts that you can refer to at any time. As the software becomes upgraded, and there are new keyboard shortcuts. This one will obviously be the most current to review to. So for example, within the missing teeth mode, I can either use my mouse to double click a tooth and
Missing.
select the dentition,
Crown.
or
Implant.
using the keyboard shortcuts, I know I is implant,
Crown.
C is crown,
Midline.
G takes me to the bridge menu, and I can select
Abutment.
the abutment,
Pontic.
the pontics in any
Implant.
configuration that I want. And X on the third molars is a shortcut for an impacted tooth.
Impacted.
There's also a very helpful one is if the patient presents with an edentulous arch, I know that Control L is an edentulous lower arch. So instead of using the foot pedal or the keyboard and mouse to delete 16 teeth, I can do it with one quick stroke, Control L, and it takes that arch away entirely. Some other useful keyboard shortcuts: if the patient presents with generalized plaque, I don't want to use the foot pedal to record plaque at 128 sites. I can just do Control Q and it puts plaque everywhere. I can follow that up by simply hitting the end key,
Recession.
which ends that mode and takes me into the next mode, and I would resume the exam. A few others to mention: instead of bleeding on all 192 sites, if you notice this patient is generalized bleeding, Control B and Control S is generalized suppuration. So becoming familiar and using these keyboard shortcuts is not only helpful, but part of that time management strategy for the Florida Probe exam. Remember, at the end of each arch and the end of each mode, I want to pause. I can fix anything within a mode. I can move around, undo, change things with the foot pedal while within this missing teeth mode. Once I leave the mode, then I would have to go to the keyboard or mouse in order to fix it. So if I am confident with recording the dentition, I can advance.